Tom Thumb. Long, long ago, in the time that is only known in song and story, when the great and good King Arthur ruled in merry England, there lived a plowman and his wife, who were unhappy only because no children had come to bring joy to their hearts, and make the humble cottage ring with their play and laughter. So off to King Arthur's court went the plowman to find the old magician Merlin, and ask his help. Merlin was a very wise wizard, who had lived for ages, and had gathered so much knowledge that he could work out kinds of wonders by merely waving his wand or saying a few mystic words. In coming to Merlin, the plowman said, "Most mighty and wonderful wizard, help my poor wife and me in this our grief. We have no children to bless. We have no children to bless us as we grow old. Give us, we pray you, a son, be he no bigger than my thumb." Presto! Roll so si mo semi so, shouted Merlin, as he leaned over the magic fire, which brightened at the words, and spread a red glow about the room. "Go, plowman, your wish has been granted." When the plowman reached home, he was hardly surprised to hear he had a son, but he was startled to see the size of the infant that was shown him by the fairy godmother. The baby was no bigger than his thumb. "His name," she said, "shall be Thomas Thumb. He shall be the adopted child of our good fairy queen. He shall be tended and protected by all the good little people of the wood, and no harm shall ever come to him." So it was that Thomas, called Tom Thumb for short, grew up under the care of the fairies, and was a great joy to his parents, who loved him dearly. Although he was small, he was by far the brightest boy in all that happy land. As years went by, he grew a little larger, although he was a very tiny chap, and the name of Tom Thumb suited him well. LT would take days to tell of the doings of Tom, and of all the adventures into which his small size led him. He was as full of fun and mischief as though he were a full-grown boy, but when he got into trouble, he was helped out by his ready wit and the watchfulness of the fairy queen. Neither heat nor cold could hurt Tom. Fire could not burn nor water drown him, for he was dressed in magic clothes made by the elves of the wildwood. They were woven of thistledown, spider's web, and the delicate bloom from the mullein leaves, and dyed with the colors from bright wild flowers of the wood. Once Tom was stirred into a pudding, which was stolen from the window ledge by a tramp tinker, and carried far away to a shady nook in the forest, where he sat down to eat his ill-gotten meal. As the tinker was about to plunge his knife into the middle of the pudding, Tom shouted, "Stop thief! Stop thief!" To hear the pudding talk, quite scared the guilty tinker out of his wits, so he threw it far from him, and made off as fast as his legs could carry him. The pudding falling over a hedge, a cornfield, was soon gobbled up by some greedy crows, leaving Tom uncovered. He was then grabbed by one of the birds in his great claws, who flew far away over the deep blue sea with him. Tom liked this chance to see the world, for a while, but getting tired at last, he gave the crow a thrust with his tiny sword, which made the bird loose his hold and drop his burden into the sea. Tom no sooner touched the waves than a huge fish swallowed and swam away with him. The fish, feeling that something was wrong, swam hither and yon, not knowing where he went, and so was soon in the meshes of a net, set by a wily fisherman. It was the habit of the fishermen of those parts to give the best and most beautiful fish they caught, to be served at the table of the king. So the great fish, with Tom inside of him, was soon in the kitchen of the castle, where the cook, on cutting him open, was astonished to see Tom pop out, and thank him politely for setting him free. The little fellow was placed upon a golden dish, and taken with joyous procession to the good King Arthur. Great was the wonder of all the brave knights and gay ladies, on hearing the cook's tale of the finding of Tom. When the king asked the little fellow where he lived, and how he came to be inside of the fish, Tom told his story with so much wit, that the knights and ladies screamed with laughter, and the jolly king made him Court Jester on the spot. He gave Tom the high order of the cap and bells, making him a knight, and giving him the title of Sir Thomas Thumb. Long lived Tom Thumb at the court of the great and good King Arthur. He not only made fun at all the jousts, tournaments and feasts of the gay court, but was a wise and trusted counselor as well, for it was given him to know all that the fairies knew, which was more than even Merlin, the wise, could ever hope to learn. Tom had his own little house in the garden of the castle, made of onyx, jasper, alabaster and amber. It was trimmed with coral, and studded with pearls and precious stones, which were brought him by the brave knights of the Round Table from far and foreign lands. For a carriage, Tom had a golden chariot, drawn by a team of 6 white mice, and instead of a saddle horse, he flew abroad upon the back of the golden pheasant. During these happy days, Tom did not forget his archaic father and mother, and for his sake the king gave them a farmhouse near the castle. He made the plowman his head farmer, giving him the care of all his broad acres. Tom's parents lived to a good old age on King Arthur's land, and had many children which grew to be as large as other people. But none of them were as bright or as famous as their firstborn, who was no larger than his father's thumb. For many years Sir Thomas lived and flourished at the court of Arthur, and it was only at the taking away of the great king that he sought the shelter of the green wood, and joined his good friends the Phaeacians. Now, by day, he lives in state, away in the depths of the forest, as king of all elves, gnomes and sprites. All night, under the mellow moonlight, Tom Thumb and his merry band of good fairies go forth through all the houses of the land to visit sleeping children, give them pleasant dreams and guard them from all harm, which were brought him by the brave knights of the Round Table from far and foreign lands. For a carriage, Tom had a golden chariot, drawn by a team of 6 white mice, and instead of a saddle horse, he flew abroad upon the back of the golden pheasant. During these happy days, Tom did not forget his archaic father and mother, and for his sake the king gave them a farmhouse near the castle. He made the plowman his head farmer, giving him the care of all his broad acres. Tom's parents lived to a good old age on King Arthur's land, and had many children which grew to be as large as other people. But none of them were as bright or as famous as their firstborn, who was no larger than his father's thumb. For many years Sir Thomas lived and flourished at the court of Arthur, and it was only at the taking away of the great king that he sought the shelter of the green wood, and joined his good friends the Phaeacians. Now, by day, he lives in state, away in the depths of the forest, as king of all elves, gnomes and sprites. All night, under the mellow moonlight, Tom Thumb and his merry band of good fairies go forth through all the houses of the land to visit sleeping children, give them pleasant dreams and guard them from all harm,